evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to the 2022-23 ASUN Executive Debate, hosted by the ASUN Electoral Commission and the Daily Nebraskan. My name is Nick McConnell, and I'm an assistant news editor and the ASUN beat reporter at the Daily Nebraskan. I'll be your lead moderator this evening.
My name is Carly John. I'm the DN's senior news editor, and I'll be moderating this evening as well.
And my name is Rebecca Hummel. I'm an assistant news editor, and I'll also be moderating.
Thank you so much to our candidates for participating, to the DN multimedia and engagement staff, and the ASUN Electoral Commission for your help in organizing this event, and to our audience here and at home for your engagement in this campus conversation.
Our format for this debate will be as follows. Student election groups will first offer 3 to 5 minute opening statements. Illuminate will go first, as Advance won our coin toss and elected to speak second.
Advance will give the second opening statement and will answer the first question first. The order of answers will then snake back and forth between the SCGs until closing statements.
Campaigns will have the opportunity to request a 30-second rebuttal if they answered a question first. Rebuttals are to be used for the clarification and differentiation of ideas and are expected to be positive and constructive. Not every request for a rebuttal will be granted in the interest of time, and the moderators reserve the right to deny rebuttals based on past rebuttals made in bad faith. We also ask brief follow-ups to clarify points we want to know more about.
We expect a constructive and respectful debate that tackles real campus issues head-on, allowing voters to make distinctions between platforms without sowing division at UNL. We expect candidates to conduct themselves in a manner befitting the occasion, and we reserve the right to interrupt, cut the microphones, or end the debate if things get out of hand. We ask the candidates to adhere to our timing as closely as possible to keep this debate to a reasonable length, and we ask that all language and tone remain respectful and civil. Now, Illuminate, please deliver your opening statement.
We would like to begin by acknowledging that the University of Nebraska is a land-grant institution with campuses and programs of the past, present, and future homelands of the Pawnee, Ponca, Oda, Missouri, Omaha, Dakota, Lakota, Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Claus people, as well as the relocated Ho-Chunk, Iowa, Sac, and Fox people. Please take a moment to consider the legacies of more than 150 years of displacement, violence, settlement, survival that brings us together here today. At the University of Nebraska, we respect and seek out the inclusion of differences, realizing we can learn from each other, and we look forward to building long-lasting relationships with the indigenous people of Nebraska. As a caution to the audience, some of the topics of the debate include sexual assault and violence. Illuminate has invited a care advocate to help any student that may need help processing what is said today. Illuminate wants to center the voices of student survivors. We are not experts who are heavily trained on the topic.
Hello everyone and good evening. My name is Mary Ibrahim. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a junior studying political science and journalism, and I'm running for the position of student body president and student regent because of the urgency for true and equitable representation within student government. The representative voice for the student body, which this campaign was born from. When Harrison, Dulce, and I met about starting our campaign, we knew we wanted to be intentional in reaching out to student leaders on this campus that were doing work both within and outside of ASUN. We formed our campaign in a week and are proud of the people on our team and the committees they represent. We also can acknowledge that there are communities not incorporated, and if elected, we promise to seek out those that don't have a seat at the table that is student government. One of our values is accountability. Accountability is something that our team values and is incorporated into our campaign in varying ways. Illuminate is taking accountability for the ways ASUN has excluded voices, specifically marginalized ones, both internally within structures and externally within advocacy efforts. ASUN is the most recognized platform for student leaders, and although that is not a problem, it becomes an issue when marginalized students, the students we advocate for, don't even have a seat at the table.
Hi, my name is Dulce Garcia, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm currently a junior majoring in ad PR and journalism, running for internal vice president. One of our values for Illuminate is advocacy. For me, advocacy is action. It is not just dialogues nor promises to do better, but direct, tangible actions. That's exactly what Illuminate is running with. We are not waiting for a potential term to bring accessibility and accountability to ASUN for its lack of representation of all community members who have never had a seat at the table. Student leaders within their respective communities will now be given an opportunity to gain more access to resources, support, and overall a bigger platform to create change. I'm running for internal vice president because I want to make sure that Senate and the committees are actively working to advocate and serve students to the highest caliber.
Hi everyone, my name is Harrison Lloyd and I use he, him pronouns. I am currently a junior majoring in international business and economics and am running for external vice president under Illuminate. One of the values of Illuminate is accessibility. Students need to know how student government runs and have access to voice their concerns. Meaningful change on campus cannot be achieved if voices remain excluded from the conversation. It is, and always has been, the responsibility of ASUN to inform and build relationships with the UNL student body and the greater Lincoln community. Illuminate's goal is to create a space where ASUN doesn't depend on the student body to build relationships for us. Instead, we want to establish communication and ensure ASUN is accessible to those we represent. I am running because of the need to connect students, organizations, and the greater UNL community to ASUN. The student body consists of diverse people from varying backgrounds, and I want to make sure each student feels represented within student government. Thank you.
Thank you, Illuminate. Now advance, please deliver your opening statement.
Hi everyone, we're the Advance campaign for ASUN student government. From the beginning, in forming our campaign, we have sought to build one that is not exclusive. We have recruited people from over 150 RSOs across campus. We've recruited people from every single Greek house and hundreds of individuals across campus. And everyone who interviewed with our campaign, we found a spot for, because we believe that ASUN should be an inclusive and empowering space to really drive home change for the student body. We're running on the idea that ASUN needs to have tangible, actionable goals. And we are so proud of the team of 40 senators, CFA members, and Green Fund Selection Committee members running with us, because every single one of them has things that they want to accomplish, experiences, both inside and outside of ASUN, and a powerful message that we're trying to drive home. Advance is about accountability and ensuring that our organization holds itself accountable to its own rules, its own bylaws, holds itself accountable to working with administration, holds itself accountable to working with students every single day. Because at the end of the day, students are our most important stakeholders, but we have a lot of work to do in order to better campus for our university. I'm Jake Drake. I'm running for ASUN Student Body President and Student Regent. I'm a junior political science major from small town Murray, Nebraska, and I've spent the last 3 years in ASUN serving as co-chair of the Campus Life and Safety Committee, a senator, a freshman campus leadership associate, and the homecoming coordinator for 2021.
Hi everyone, my name is Christine Trin. I am a junior economics and political science major. I also, like Jake, have been involved in ASUN for the past 3 years. My time in ASUN started out in the Freshman Campus Leadership Associates, in which I worked on a project to raise funds and school supplies for Title I schools across the Lincoln community. I then graduated on to become SDLA co-director, in which, under my purview, worked with 20 different projects. And in my tenure, 15 of those projects were passed in Senate and will be implemented within the next year in ASUN. I was then elected by the student body to serve as College of Arts and Sciences Senator, and was elected by the 40 sitting senators to serve as Speaker of the Senate. I now have the institutional knowledge to format bills and present them to Senate by working with the other senators.
Hello everyone, my name is Alec Miller. I am a junior psychology and Spanish major from right here in Lincoln, Nebraska. Like Jake and Christine, I started my experience in student government my freshman year with the Freshman Campus Leadership Associates. And in that group, the project that I took on was kind of based around expanding the counseling and psychological services. From then, I went on to be the only freshman to be elected on the College of Arts and Sciences Senate. And from there, for the past 2 terms, I have been the Communications Committee Chair. In that role, I have a committee that serves as the bridge between the student body and student government. So we do a lot of stuff with social media. And I've really grown our social media, and I've been trying to meet students with where they're at. And a lot of us are online, and it has grown so much. At one point this semester, I looked at our insights, and our Instagram had grown by over 15,000%, which was really impressive, and I'm really proud of. And my mission here, going on to kind of expand these roles as external vice president, is to make sure that every student knows that there's a student government here on campus ready to advocate for them at the drop of the hat.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize that although we have so much experience in ASUN and so much love for the organization, we have a campaign built of both very experienced senators and people who've never sat in ASUN before. And we think that with our combined experiences and involvements across campus, that we are the best to represent ASUN and the student body moving forward, so that we can build better communication and have better conversations about being better leaders. Do you guys have anything to add?
Yeah, if we are so luckily elected, I invite everyone sitting in the audience today and around campus to apply to be a part of ASUN, because us and the rest of the candidates slated on our team will happily open our arms and welcome you into ASUN. We can't stress enough how important ASUN is and how important it has affected our life.
And make sure to vote on My Red, March 1st and 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just for a note for our candidates, please pass the microphone to one another at the table so our audience on stream can hear you clearly. Our first topic today will be COVID-19 and its impact on campus. As we near 2 years since UNL shut down in-person instruction for COVID-19, we'd like to reflect on how the pandemic has been handled here and how UNL can best move forward. For the first question, how do you feel the university's administration has handled issues surrounding COVID-19?
I think administration, especially, the biggest part about ASUN's role in COVID is realizing that it's not an issue that is solely overseen by ASUN. We don't make the decisions about mask mandates. We don't make the decisions about vaccines. But what we do is provide a student voice to administrators and to the COVID task force for what direction we want to see the university take. And I'm really proud of the work our current IVP has done on the COVID task force thus far this year. But I'm not going to say that everything has always been perfect. In large part, administration this year has punted decisions to the Lincoln-Lancaster County Health Department rather than making different decisions that might be better for students. So as we go into our term, I can't say if I would have done something differently because I'm not running for the director of the county health department. But what I would say is emphasizing a student voice on that panel and student opinions throughout.
I would say that, is this on?
Should be. Are folks able to hear? Could you flip the switch on the back?
Hello?
I'm really sorry about this. How about you borrow this one for a moment and we will put that down.
Hello. Okay, perfect. I'd say that administration is doing what they know best by including someone that is a part of ASUN, because ASUN, of course, its mission is the representative voice for the student body. I do think that when there's only one student or few students representative on a board and they don't contact other people, that can lead to changes that only impact few positively. I hear a lot, I know we're all students, but I hear a lot about people that are marginalized, such as those that are immunocompromised, those that have disabilities, those that are Black, Indigenous, and other students of color that are at higher risk of COVID-19, that they're not being adequately represented. And so I think including more students and more voices, if it's not at the table, then including them in the conversations and allowing representatives to be advocates for those that aren't at the table, I think is really important.
Let's see if it works real quick. Can we hear? No. Okay, we cannot. Let's use that one for now. We'll just pass it here.
Okay.
Cool. Sorry about this. Yep. Our sound is trying to figure it out right now, so thank you. But that's a good idea.
Moving on to our second question. What is your campaign's position on the removal of mask mandates on campus?
That would be us, right?
Yes.
Jennifer, who we have
Yes.
on first?
Yes.
Sorry.
Of course.
Hello, thank you. We all found out very recently that masks are no longer allowed to be mandated on campus unless in a classroom where it is needed. I don't think that decision included a lot of voices. I didn't know this decision was being made when it was being made. I think in the future it would be helpful to include students and faculty and staff that also were not aware of this decision being made and giving advance notice. So making sure students have time to prepare and reach out to their instructors and make alternative arrangements if need be if they no longer feel comfortable going to class, making sure there's options to continue going to school online. And then also like a heads up, more than a 24-hour by midnight, masks will no longer be mandated. Yeah.
I also agree with Harrison on that stance. I believe that it would have been very helpful for administration to give the student body a heads up on the mask mandate ending. However, I also believe that the COVID situation is ever changing. UNL campus is at the lowest rate it has ever had with COVID cases, and I'm really proud of that. That means that we are resilient as a community. We are constantly getting tested and boosted up. And I trust health officials to help us understand the ever-changing COVID crisis.
All right, this question is directly for our presidential candidates. Has ASUN done enough in the past 2 years to help students navigate the pandemic? And has UNL as a whole?
I think specifically within ASUN, yes and no. Of course, there's like always leaps and bounds that we need to be taking to do better. But I also think that we've been committed to keeping students safe as best we can. Especially, the biggest part of that is being good leaders ourselves. ASUN meetings have gone online every time that student involvement policies have suggested that they go online. That's wearing masks when mask mandates are in place in public. That's following procedures and still advocating for student voices wherever we can. And in terms of UNL as a whole, I think that going back to the previous answer that, yeah, we should have more previous knowledge about the decisions being made and more student voices in those decisions. There should be a student voice in every conversation. So ASUN's role in the pandemic continues to be emphasizing student voices. And I think we've done a good job of that, but I think we have to continue fighting for that. Hopefully, we don't have to deal with this issue as much into the future, but I am proud of what we've done, and I think we can continue to do better.
As someone that's been involved in the previous 2 terms, I've seen the strong leadership that comes from our past 2 presidents, specifically 2 women. I really look up to them in their leadership and how they've been able to assess this ongoing pandemic. I think that there's been a lot of changes. I mean, I know no one expected us to wear masks at this point in time, but because it is an ever-changing crisis, they have been able to assess the needs of students, make sure that everyone is being well-informed, and making decisions that impact students. Of course, there are faulty cracks, and I think that if this was any other case, it would be very different. But if I was to be put in that position, I know that an ongoing pandemic would be something that would be really hard to maintain public image while still trying to advocate for students in the best way.
As a rebuttal? Absolutely.
Less of a rebuttal, more of a, I just want to add that something I'm really proud of is how committed we've been to caring for people who've been affected by the pandemic mentally and physically. We have to continue to be cognizant that students are not always going to be healthy or able to complete their coursework. And we have to continue to work with professors and administrators in understanding that whether it be attendance policies or expectations of students, that we have to be mindful of a student's personal and mental health. I'm proud of what we've done so far, and I want to continue advocating for that.
Illuminate, would you like to respond?
I'd agree with the point about attendance policies. I know in my experience, I'm currently on Senate, and we got presented the spring 2022 attendance policy late in the fall semester, and we're told that there were very little to no student voices involved in that. I think that that's very detrimental because these are faculty and staff making decisions for students that are going through ongoing crises, both in the classroom and outside. There have been physical, emotional, mental, financial troubles that I know a lot of students have been through, and all of those play a factor in the classroom and how those affect students.
Is there specific legislation your campaign will consider if elected regarding COVID-19?
I'd say that that's hard to say right now. Right now we're in the end of February. We probably get elected into office at the end of March. That's 4 weeks where we're able to see spikes due to the lifted mask mandate. Maybe there's another surge in cases. I am not a health expert, so I cannot say whether the current COVID policy will be the same in 4 weeks and 4 months. But I do know that listening to people that know better than me is really important and something that I use not only in my personal life, but as someone that is a leader on campus.
We are also not public health officials, and so through this next term, if we are elected, we will be thinking very critically and monitoring the situation, listening to public health officials who, do this 40 hours a week. And so some possible legislation we could be looking at is, if there are spikes, writing a resolution to support the implementation of a mask mandate, or writing legislation to promote vaccine clinics. Also, kind of to touch on a point from earlier, writing legislation to encourage the Faculty Senate to be more lax and understanding of students' needs with regard to attendance policies. We have a few people on our campaign who have even drafted that type of legislation, passed that legislation in the past. Our presumptive Chief of Staff, Paul Pekos, has been working with the Faculty Senate on these notes. And so yeah, I'm really excited. We do have a lot of ideas, and we are really flexible to take on this challenge that is the pandemic. So thank you.
Going on to our second topic. Our second topic will be about sexual violence on campus. We would like to issue a content warning now for this section in case anyone wants to leave the room or stop viewing the stream. During the beginning of last semester, there were protests against Phi Gamma Delta, otherwise known as Fiji, after an alleged sexual assault occurred at the fraternity. The protests also called out the university's lack of action and transparency when it comes to sexual violence occurring on campus. Our first question going into this, has the administration's response to sexual violence on campus been sufficient over the years? Has it become sufficient since the protest last fall?
I think if anything has been clear by the start of this year and what students had to go through the first week of school is that no, our policies have not been sufficient, and we have not done enough historically to prevent or to support survivors. But starting that conversation started with the many, many nights of protests that I'm proud to have attended all of, because this is a really personal topic for so many people. And what we have to emphasize is standing with survivors and having their voices present. We can't always ask people to tell their entire raw stories in order for them to have change and be heard. But what we have to do is acknowledge that they exist, and follow through and follow up on projects and ideas. I'm proud to have Senator Alex Glowick on our campaign, currently working on a project with CARE, pushing for a buddy system, connecting administrators and the sexual assault systems on campus, and connecting students so that they understand the policies, their rights, and that they're being heard at every corner.
I think that this was a conversation that has been happening for a while. My freshman year, I had the opportunity to sit on the Chancellor's campus-wide collaborative for sexual misconduct. Although time was cut short on that due to COVID, I do recognize that the policies and procedures that my committee specifically worked on were not implemented until national outrage happened. I think a lot of that fell on the burden of student survivors because they had to go out and protest and say, I am someone that has been affected by this, and I think that this campus needs to do better. As a student, I understand what that's like. It's not fun, and working with survivors and putting them at the forefront is very important to ensure that true, tangible, and equitable change is being done. Sitting on the Chancellor's Commission on the Prevention of Sexual Misconduct right now, I am able to work with faculty and staff to center students and center student survivors and work that's being done.
All right, this question is directly for our presidential candidates. We'd like to ask you if you participated in the protests outside Fiji last fall, and we'd ask what you'd tell students, especially victims of sexual violence who protested last fall and haven't seen enough progress.
I did participate in those protests. I heard as students shared and struggled as they felt like the university didn't care for them, didn't protect them, and I related to them so much. I tried to attend as many protests as I could, but the thing is, after a while, it takes a toll on you. As a survivor, being in spaces like these hurts. It hurts to have to do work for people that don't care. I'll end with that.
Yes, I also participated in every night that I could at the protests during the first week of school, and I understand the toll that it takes for so many personally who've experienced this but still felt the need to show up, hear other people's stories, and be emotionally affected. And as an organization, we have to stand with survivors, and we have to hear their stories and understand that there still needs to be change. But we also need to be empathetic and understanding leaders in this debate, because we only make positive change around this topic when we work together, when we understand problems, and when we turn to each other and really understand that there needs to be change and that we're willing to do that.
There are many sexual assaults that were reported to have occurred at residence halls. How will you help make students feel safe, especially if they live on campus?
I served as a resident assistant myself sophomore year, and I understand that there is a lot of red tape that students go through, and perhaps one of the most difficult ones is that it's difficult to go to your RA with this type of issue because they are, number one, a mandatory reporter, so you might not trust that entire process because if you don't want to go through it, you can't talk to them confidentially. And then the other issue is that they're the only person who you might be acquainted with in leadership in residence halls. So if they are your assaulter, you have almost no one you know who to face and who to go to. So being a resident assistant and hearing raw stories and working with people just trying to get through their first year of college, it's a real weight on your shoulders, and you have to be willing to hear and help students along the way.
I also served as a resident assistant my sophomore year. I was a resident assistant in Selleck Quadrangle. If you're not familiar with that, that is a housing dorm on campus that has a wide range of students from freshmen to graduate students. As a resident assistant, I often encountered people that lived on my floor that had concerns. And as a responsible employee, which is someone that is mandated to report, I wanted to be there for them and I wanted to support them, but I couldn't. I think that that needs to be something that is taken into account and shown that, like, hey, if you are like telling me something in confidence, I don't want to have to share that because you're sharing this with me in a confidential setting. It was very disappointing to see 24-year-olds living in the same hall as 18-year-olds not being able to act as they should. I think that that is a very big problem that exists within housing and something that I was working on last year as a project, trying to remove police and other factors that are called for sexual violence.
Should ASUN better support victims through the Title IX process? How so?
Right, so, yes.
Can you repeat the question?
Should ASUN better support victims through the Title IX process, and how so?
Could you change out learning for survivors, please?
I think that I've sat on a lot of committee work, particularly the Campus Life and Safety Committee, and issues surrounding the office, the Title IX office has always been a thing. I think that a large majority of survivors and overall students aren't even too familiar with what the Title IX office exactly does. So I think, yeah, ASUN could do a lot better, but I think it also requires more than Title IX. Title IX is one process that survivors might want to reach out for, and some survivors might not want to reach out to Title IX given its lack of accountability, accessibility in terms of information, and overall action done to actually further and get to like a particular like good outcome of it. So I think Title IX is just one thing that ASUN could do to support student survivors, and it's necessarily not always what should be the first step. I think we need to take into account too, is it exactly what a survivor does, and we can't put a blanket statement over every survivor's experience because someone might not be comfortable with Title IX office. Some people might require more emotional needs, more support in terms of going to care.
I also served on the Chancellor's Collaborative on Sexual Misconduct with Senator Ibrahim, and throughout that process, we heard a lot of stories of students being really hurt by the Title IX office, and so we do not think that ASUN should help students through the Title IX process. What we do think is that ASUN could help with like education of like, here's like how the Title IX office works. You know, they're not going to be biased and actually support you. We want to help provide like more other resources like CARE, Voices of Hope, give survivors advocates and help them learn about, you know, how they can recover from this life-changing traumatic experience. Because, you know, ultimately, you know, what we want to do here is look out for every student's health and well-being. For this question, that would really just be about education and finding more supportive resources that can help guide students through the Title IX process, if that's something they choose. So, thank you.
If elected, how would you address sexual violence on campus? Is there any legislation in particular that you consider at this time?
I think number one is following up on the projects that we've already started. ASUN has started work this year, and we have to acknowledge that, but we also have to acknowledge that we haven't gone far enough. First, with the sexual assault survivor fund that's still being worked on through student fees, through administrative processes, we have to be willing to continue work on that into a next administration because, to my knowledge, it's not done yet. We also have to follow up on the Sexual Assault Task Force, which was crafted and passed into the bylaws, but to my knowledge still has yet to meet or provide any new information or advice or even conversations that have been had around this topic through ASUN. If we're going to make the commitment to support survivors, we have to make the commitment to do it always, not just in reaction to the events on campus.
I'll speak on this. I was the one that started the Sexual Misconduct Task Force. I was the one that met with the University of Minnesota. I was the one, after seeing protests, that took action and tried to do things to center students and center groups that do work for students. I was the one that took weeks trying to figure out how to fix bylaws, how to make sure that these worked with administration. I'm sorry that it's not happening right now. That's not how change works. I think one of our goals, attainment, shows that I'm not waiting, we're not waiting until we get into office to do work. We're doing it now. We're doing it in spaces inside of ASUN and outside of ASUN. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that I am not at fault for the lack of accountability, because there hasn't been accountability for that. But I acknowledge that and I take blame for that, but I will not stand here and listen to myself being ridiculed without using names.
I'd like to follow up on that and say it wasn't a targeted comment, but rather that we are here to keep communication current and that we care about the conversation that's being had. Yes, I am really proud of the work that has been done in creation of this task force, but I also wish that it would have started already, that we would have seen the efforts being done and the students who are clamoring for this support, just to see it kind of fall through during a year where we really need these conversations to be happening. So while I'm grateful for the things that you have done and the support you've given to campus, I also want to make sure that we're following up on that and being present leaders and appointing people to these committees who are able to make the change necessary.
I'll wait until the DEI portion to talk more about this. But a lot of times, marginalized students, especially Black students, don't get credit for the work that they do. I am someone that took initiative, did something, passed it into ASUN, and it is now being worked on. I think we talk about how marginalized students often face the brunt of the work, and I think that this is a clear demonstration of how that has been done. I will not sit here and be ridiculed and, you know, whatever they, am I done? Okay. Thank you.
Greek life has had a high COVID cases per capita during Omicron variant, and protests surrounding sexual misconduct in fraternity houses were a large part of the campus conversation last fall. What is the role of Greek life on campus, and how can these harms be mitigated or done away with?
Yes.
that it's something that you cannot just say that ASUN is in charge of. It's a lot to put on students who have part-time jobs, students who are doing other organizations, to say that you want to change the campus culture surrounding Greek life. I think the main thing that Illuminate wants to do is make sure that we add Greek life to these conversations. It's not something that ASUN can do alone. It's something that has to be done collaboratively with Greek life and its councils to make sure that it's not just ASUN burdening all that fault, but also Greek life is collaborating, working with us to make sure that we focus on issues surrounding SA and issues surrounding COVID.
I wanted to say that as a member of the Greek community, I am proud to be a part of this community. I have seen so many great leaders in my chapter take on different roles throughout this past semester, throughout the year, to help better our chapter and the rest of the Greek community in the COVID crisis and on sexual assault occurrences on campus. I want to also say that Greek life is not a homogenous group. You can't group every chapter or every person in Greek life together. Different chapters are taking on different positions to better their chapter specifically. I know that as someone that serves as the chapter enrichment chairwoman for my sorority, I put on PowerPoints, I put on presentations in order to help my sisters grow and learn in their commitments throughout campus. And I know that now, stepping down from that role, other people have seen the work that I have done and are continuing that work now. I am proud of Aveda Palmer, who is now the current enrichment chairwoman, who is now continuing the work. And you can see that across Greek chapters on campus.
Our third topic will be about money, the affordability of UNL, student fees, and funding. Money is always an important topic to discuss since it directly affects students and the UNL community as a whole. UNL champions itself as an affordable school, but many students still struggle to pay for their education and make ends meet. How can ASUN help to make UNL more affordable for students?
Just the other day at a campaign booth, a student came up and talked to us about this exact issue, and we explored it with him, which is great. And some things that were brought up were that we could do a better job at educating students on different scholarship opportunities. We also talked about how overwhelming it is. Like, there are a lot of different scholarship opportunities. It's almost like, where do I go? There's a lot of different options. And so just kind of slowing down and taking students through step by step. We'd even be excited to take this on like individually. We've heard ideas of holding office hours, inviting students to come, and we help them apply for scholarships. Because if someone wants to pursue higher education, they ought to, and there ought to be opportunities to help make that more affordable. So yeah, thank you.
Glenn? I agree, and I'd also say that more transparency with student fees would help people understand where their money is going. Understanding that the campus is affordable to a lot, but not all. And then also looking into more collaborations with institutions like Husker Hub to make sure that the people that are working there have the resources to be successful, to inform students properly on scholarship opportunities, on their own scholarships, making sure that they're accountable for giving information that is accurate. I know freshman year, a lot of my scholarships changed, and I had to do a lot of back and forth with Husker Hub. And it took a lot of time, and a lot of that was placed on me, and I didn't have a lot of places other than Husker Hub to go to. So making sure that institutions that help students like Husker Hub are properly trained and have resources to be successful.
I also wanted to add that we also have to put a greater emphasis on students.
Senator, please, if you wouldn't mind asking before we launch into a rebuttal, just so that we can keep things on track. If you'd like a rebuttal, we're happy to grant one in this case.
Wait, but it's another person speaking.
Oh, is it only?
I think there are only one speaker.
I think we're all right if rebuttals aren't directly from the person who spoke. If that's all right with everyone, that'll just be the policy for rebuttals. A different person can pick up? Great.
Can I have a rebuttal?
Absolutely, thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, sorry. I also think that we also have to put a greater emphasis on providing resources for first-gen students. I know that both Jake and I are first-gen Oasis students, and we would not be here without the financial aid that we have from the Chancellor Scholarship that we have. Providing and bettering the resources that we have through Husker Hub, through Oasis, will be beneficial for all students. I know that going through and filing the FAFSA was a difficult task for me because my parents immigrated here over from Vietnam and really didn't have a clear understanding of the American public system, school system. So just placing greater emphasis for first-gen students and students who really need the financial aid.
I'd also add, if I can have a rebuttal, following Christine's point, I do agree that we should put a greater emphasis on first-gen and low-income students. I'm one of those students. I'm also a DACA recipient, so that means that some things are not accessible to me, like a FAFSA. For international students, that's also not accessible. So making sure that there's resources that are very intersectional, that just don't fall into citizenship status, that is of a resident or a citizen, because we have a great number of international students, a great number of graduate students, and also DACA recipients on this campus. So making sure that we provide resources to and information to institutions, as Harrison said, like Husker Hub.
Okay, we're sorry, we didn't plan this, but we are going to take a quick 5-minute break to resolve some issues. So just a quick 5-minute intermission, and we'll come back in just a little bit. Thank you, folks, for your patience. Just a moment, and we will be right back.
Hi.
Does anybody want to address
On YouTube or Instagram? I have no idea, but because from what I've been talking to people, no one's had issues on my end. So maybe it's, I don't know how it works. I just wanted to let you guys know. I don't know. I don't know. I just wanted to let you guys know. Yeah, I have no idea what that company is. Yeah. She said more in the Thank you. Yeah. I just wanted to let you guys know, Bo. Yeah.
for the rest of the debate. We apologize for the added time, and we realize we're reaching the hour mark now. If anyone needs to step out, if anyone has a prior commitment that they need to get to, we're totally understanding of needing to shuffle out because this is going longer than the planned hour. That being said, we're going to try and wrap this up in about an hour 15 or an hour 30 this evening, and that'll take us to about the 9 o'clock mark. So our two remaining sections are diversity, equity, and inclusion, and student questions. We're going to get through as much as we possibly can, but we may have to make some unplanned cuts for time. Thank you again so much for your attendance. Thank you for your patience, and we'll go ahead and get started. Carly?
Our fourth and final topic will be about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is something that the UNL student population puts great value and importance on. It's also something that the university has put efforts forward to embrace and improve diversity, equity, and inclusion. The first question is, what does diversity, equity, and inclusion mean to you?
We'll start with eliminate.
DEI is like my life. It's all my life experiences. DEI is not a pillar to me. It's not a value. It's something ingrained in how I move throughout this university, how I move throughout this state, and overall my experience as a person. It's just DEI is like my lived experiences. And I think that when we talk about DEI, we've created this narrative that DEI includes is always synonymous with race. But for me, DEI includes accessibility in terms of your physical accessibility, your emotional accessibility, your citizenship status, your religion, your gender, and sexual identity. So to sum it up, DEI is like my lived experiences, as well as I see DEI as very intersectional.
Thank you. I'm really proud to be leading an extremely diverse campaign of powerful leaders who have their own powerful stories and things that they want to accomplish. While we recognize we have a really diverse campaign, we also recognize that we can't represent all minority groups on campus. No campaign ever has, and no campaign ever will. And it's about finding those voices that we may not have on our campaign or be represented, and amplifying their voice and understanding their stories. We're not here to tokenize our campaign or make anyone's story the only thing about them. Real diversity, equity, and inclusion must be followed by action, and we have a powerful platform of action items and things that we can accomplish to do better in this sphere. Because to me, diversity, equity, and inclusion is not just amplifying my own story and the things that I have faced, but also following that up and representing my community well and making tangible change for it.
Absolutely eliminate if you'd like a rebuttal.
I recognize the fact that it is very hard to get all communities in a campaign, but I think one of the greatest lacks of a student who can voice the issues of a community is the fact that there is no Black students on your campaign. And while it's not a matter of tokenization, it's also putting forth the idea that particularly the Black community has experienced a lot within these 2 years, and that there's a voice lacking within your slate for it. And looking at your pillar for DEI, which is to attend RSO events and celebrate diverse aspects on campus, is just one thing. Action is another.
Let me follow that up with, first of all, it's not true. We do have a Black member of our campaign, but I'm not going to sit here and name her and tokenize her. The reality is that we have to recognize that DEI is not just people of color. I would be proud to serve as the first openly gay president of the University of Nebraska. That's never happened before. I've never seen that. And what our action items are, I've got them listed right here. You know, fighting for more education within ASUN, LGBTQ teach-in, partnering with the LGBTQ Center, the Women's Center, fighting so that we are amplifying the voices of communities. That's what I can do for my community. But we've got to listen to everyone involved and not point fingers and say, you're not as diverse as me.
Okay. This is specifically for the presidential candidates. What makes your campaign most suited to lead campus on diversity, equity, and inclusion? That's,
That's you.
yes, that should be advanced. Sorry.
No, thank you for clarifying. Once again, I just want to return to the action items that we're fighting for. It's one thing to fight for a seat at the table, and that's really important. Everyone deserves one. But it's another to follow that up with action and really accomplish something. And amplifying the voices of RSOs that really have the structure and the history of understanding their own histories and issues so that they can educate us. We're best suited for it because we understand that we have to have tough conversations. We have to be willing to listen to everyone in the room.
I'm not going to sit here and tokenize the people on our team because that would bring nothing, but I do want to say it has been amazing to see people that have not had a seat at the table share their frustrations with student government and the lack of inclusivity and equity within it, and see how they feel energized, ready to create change because they have a seat at the table and are able to advocate for communities that they represent. I think in my own experience, it has been extremely challenging to be a Black person in ASUN. I will not sit here and discredit that, but I will say representation is so important, and not only representation, but equitable representation. I'm so proud of the team that we have and the people that are represented in it, and I think that we have the true ability to create equitable change in multiple parts of this campaign.
Last semester was rife with conversations about the Journey to Anti-Racism and Racial Equity plan on campus. A number of politicians in the state have asked for scalebacks to the plan. Does your campaign support the Journey plan, and how would you lead the campus on this issue?
Yeah, simple answer would be yes. I saw the plan before it was launched. Like anything on this campus, it's not perfect, but I think it's a start. I think it's a start in the right direction. For us, one of our pillars is attainment, and knowing that in one term, we cannot promise you that we will change everything on this campus and make it a safe space for every BIPOC person, but we can promise that we will continue that journey, and knowing that there's other things that we can do outside of that action plan to make a safer and more equitable experience for all students on this campus.
I would echo that. I believe all three of us in Senate were in full support of the racial equity plan and the resolution that was brought before us in support of it. And yeah, I would echo what Dulce said in support, just because a lot of it is not something that I have experienced, and I acknowledge that, and I acknowledge that so much of the conversation is listening and learning. So while I can't speak to any personal conversations about being in that community, I do understand that we need to make the strides necessary to make campus better.
You'd like a rebuttal? Absolutely.
I would like to say that although Advance and your exec team it's awesome that you supported this during Senate, I do think that specifically you three have contributed to the exclusion of Black students. I can't go much into detail with my 30 seconds, but a student that was under the care of one of our members here was excluded in conversations and led to believe that she was not fit to be within the spaces that exist. I think that this is part of the journey to anti-racism, is checking yourself and checking the spaces that you're in and checking the people who you're involved in to do better.
Really, really quickly, because this is so important, and I think it's important to hear everyone out on this. We're going to give more than 30 seconds on rebuttal here, and we'll kind of just go back and forth. As a follow-up question, until this particular point plays itself out. As long as people still want to speak on this, we'll keep going. Does that sound fair to everyone?
So I can continue speaking?
That is an excellent question. Yes, for a little bit longer.
How?
I'll let you finish that one. 30 more seconds? Sound amenable?
No, go ahead.
Okay, okay.
I'm fine.
I will also not sit here and be talked about unnamed. I was a person who brought up these concerns, and I do own the fact that I did bring them up. But I brought them up not because of racial issues, and I apologize. I have apologized to Senate and everyone who was affected deeply that was how it had progressed and turned out. However, serving as Speaker of the Senate, I was elected into my position to serve at the will of the students, of the student body, and as a current sitting members in Senate. Multiple people who have worked with this person brought concerns of other concerns to me. I did it out of passion for the organization that I served in prior. The organization, which was FCLA, in which I was a member of and had the opportunity to co-direct with, the members brought these concerns to me and I listened to them. It was never my intention to discredit their stories and all their hard work. I was just doing my job. That is why we embrace the differences. That is why we encourage to have these difficult conversations.
I'm gonna give the student body some context as someone that was sitting in on the Senate. This was right after Fiji, and so Chancellor Green, Lori Bellows, who's the Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, and a lot of admin were there. And the way Senate is set up is that there is a call to order, and then there's open forum, which they spoke at, and then appointments right after that. And Chancellor Green and Lori Bellows were in the room as Christine asked for more time to speak on this appointment, wrote a whole essay talking about why she wasn't fit to be in this position, even though she was her freshman mentor. And then this continued on until she was told to stop. And then right after that happened, Jake and Alec continued to say that I think that Christine's statements are true because she is her FCLA co-director, with no response, then leading to a closed session, which never happens in ASUN unless there is internal talk amongst the group if there's like a disciplinary hearing. I pushed for an open session because I believe transparency is very important. And although I don't think that, bashing people is okay, I do think that students should know what happened and students should be able to get the whole story, because I have the ability and the lived experience to see that, to experience what it's like to be a Black woman, to be in spaces that aren't meant for them, and to be bashed by people that are supposed to mentor you and foster you.
I want to chime in here and both defend my own actions and also defend Christine, who took an incredibly difficult stance against, yes, someone who she had mentored and had watched and had fostered through FCLA. It takes a lot of guts to have to stand in front of Senate and say, I disagree with what is going on. And that has to happen transparently. If you support transparency, that means you support it in front of the Chancellor and Lori Bellows, whether they are there or not. And that is the exact issue with this conversation, is that it was never about race. It's about qualifications and who we appoint and being willing to have the tough conversations and ask the tough questions. We're here to build bridges, not burn them. In the end, we voted in favor of the appointment because we had a long and empowering conversation about what we want ASUN to look like. But that's exactly what our campaign is fighting for, is having those tough conversations. Not sitting here and pointing the finger at each other and saying, well, you're evil because you don't support my friend, or you asked a bad question, which might have embarrassed them. At some point, we have to take some level of responsibility and understand that we need to be asking these questions. We support reforming the appointments board process so things like this don't happen again, but that's how it had to happen. That's when it had to happen, in front of Senate, in front of people. And I agree, it is unfortunate that that had to that conversation had to end that way. But the reality is that we have to listen to each other and find common ground, and we're not even doing that on the debate stage right now.
Okay, I just want to step in and say, I know that there are a lot of feelings on this. I appreciate everyone for remaining calm here. We are going to take one more speech from either side on this issue, and then we're going to move on to another question, if that sounds amenable to everyone. Okay. I've been letting folks go over time. I am going to keep this one a little more strictly to a minute. I understand this is an important issue. We needed to hear this out. But one more speech, 1 more minute on this topic, and we'll start with Illuminate and then go back to advance.
I think it's great that you want to have these conversations where we have common ground and there's transparency, but I think one thing that everyone should know was that the student wasn't even there. She wasn't part of the conversation. So for a senator and a mentor to spend time allotted in the time that's supposed to be meant for business to tell the student that they're not capable of having that is one thing. I asked why wasn't she there? Why wasn't she able to give a rebuttal to everything you said? If there needs to be transparency and more ground for conversation, then you should include the student there, then rather than have them be gone and not be able to defend themselves in front of administrators as a freshman student, as a Black freshman student.
After the incident that occurred on my behalf, I have spent a lot of time reflecting on my actions, and I am truly apologetic for what has happened. But I feel like my character has been defamed in a way. I said that she was not qualified for this specific position. However, I suggested on multiple occasions to her and the rest of Senate that she would be way better suited to be a senator. Senators have so much power and say in the different legislations that get passed, on the different projects that get worked on campus. The concerns that were brought to me were by her peers that worked with her specifically. This position is being filled out great by her, but I also think that other people who applied for the position would have been well done as well. In short, I told her that she had the qualifications. She had so much skill and leadership abilities to fulfill senatorship.
All right, here's my question. Sorry, got a little confused on the document. Okay. Often, ASUN has been seen as an exclusive club rather than a full student government with student best interests at heart. How would you respond to this claim, and how would you work to make ASUN more inclusive of all kinds of students?
Do we start?
Is that? I believe so, yes. Go ahead.
I would begin by saying that we didn't wait to be elected in ASUN to reach out to a lot of different communities on campus and ask them specifically if they'd like to be a part of our campaign. I would also say, I can talk a little bit about the exclusionary actions of ASUN. I helped start a new organization in the College of Business called Pride in Business, and then I helped lead it, and I became the president last year. ASUN hasn't done a lot for student organizations in the past of outreach. So they've attended meetings, which is one of their tangible actions, I believe. But as an RSO leader of all three of us, I think support means more than attendance. While it's great to include people in conversations and continue to build, I think ASUN needs to take a more active role in reaching out to student organizations and providing them with resources to be successful.
I mentioned during our opening statement that my mission with ASUN is to make sure that every student knows that there's a student government here on campus to advocate for them. And I have that mission for a reason, because a lot of students don't know about ASUN. A lot of the times with our booths throughout the past 2 weeks, a lot of students don't even know what ASUN is, how the campaigns work. And so through my communications committee chair position, I've been really trying to tackle this. And a lot of things that Harrison mentioned. Recently, in the past few weeks, I've started doing RSO of the Week, which has been really fun on the ASUN Instagram. And kind of the purposes of that is to, recognize these cool RSOs, and also hope that, those RSO leaders will then, share our student government page with, the students under them. And then to kind of touch on how we planned this campaign, you know, months ago when we were planning this campaign initially, we sent over around 150 emails around like 1 a.m. 150 emails to try to get RSOs to send us their brightest leaders to apply for our campaign.
Rebuttal?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I would just like to. Sorry. Hello? There we go. I would also like to acknowledge that my two running mates' contributions to RSOs. So Mary is currently serving as the president of the Black Student Union, and Dulce is also serving as the president of Define America. And then as an added tangible action, I think it would be great for ASUN to do something that they've done in the past, where to make committees for RSO leaders to serve on, to make it easier to communicate with them. This was brought to my attention by past leaders. Yeah, I think making it more accessible is the cornerstone of helping RSOs on campus. Thank you.
I think a really cool way that the Advance campaign is showing that we are taking tangible actions to recruit more people from underrepresented RSOs on campus is by what we are doing now. Just last week, I went to the Vietnamese Student Association meeting, and now I have two of their greatest members on our campaign. I'm proud to have them. When I was on campus, I never knew VSA existed, but I am so proud to have attended one of their meetings because that environment was so cool and so like heartwarming to be included into right off the bat. So we are taking tangible actions right now, not even being elected into office yet.
Thanks. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Can we?
Do we have a counter rebuttal, or is that not allowed?
I think in the interest of time, we're going to have to move on. I'm really sorry.
No,
We
that's
do
absolutely fine.
have to keep this to a reasonable length. So, ladies and gentlemen, we planned for more student questions at the beginning of this evening than we are going to have time for this evening. So we are going to ask two of them to the candidates. And to rectify this, we are going to ask the candidates, we'll send them some of the questions that we could not ask this evening. We'll ask them to answer those in print format, and we will publish an article in the coming days that answers more of those questions if both campaigns are amenable and willing to participate and answer more of those questions. Does that sound good to everybody on stage?
Absolutely.
Yes, amazing.
Fantastic. This first student question comes, says, how do you concretely plan to make ASUN more relevant to students? I believe so, yes.
One of my goals with the communications committee is to meet students with where they're at, meet students where they're at. And so that's why I've been putting hours each week into social media, growing that, doubling that. Something that had never been done before is, you would think it's pretty intuitive, but each week we have Senate on Wednesday nights, and I'm the first person to actually post Senate updates for the student body to see, so students can actually see what's going on. I've had members on my committee team up with that too, and so it's super fun. Senator Ethan Dunn takes on Twitter, I take on Instagram, and I have a few other senators help me out. Even right now, we're doing so much, meeting students at where they're at on social media, and then also through the union, hosting booths. And so yeah, I think this is something we really want. We want students to keep in the know with what's going on with student government because they deserve to. Thank you.
Harrison said. ASUN is all relevant to us. ASUN allocates more than, $90 million? $600 million and stuff, and that's information that most students don't know. And throughout this campaign, we've started by sharing that information with students, sharing within our social media what are the responsibilities of committee members to feed, for the committee for fee allocations to the Green Fund selections. And one thing is that, we'll be clear, Harrison and I do not have that much ASUN experience. And I don't think that is our fault, but what we've been doing is doing work within those communities. We've been doing that work, so what Illuminate plans to do to make ASUN more relevant, even though it's already relevant, is making sure that the people that we have in Senate and committee and the committee members have a bigger platform. Like we said, we reached out to student leaders who are already doing the work, but now we're going to give them more resources, more support, more financial support, and overall a bigger platform to create change on a larger scale.
Before I go into the rebuttal, I did want, oh, sorry.
Sorry,
Yeah.
we're not going to have any more rebuttals this evening. Just in the interest of time, we got to get through closing statements. Point of order?
Yeah, for the fees, it's not 600 million.
Girl, you can say it out loud.
Yeah, please speak in the microphone.
It was just a small point of order. The fees that is allocated through ASUN is not 600 million. The projected annual revenue that was passed for 2021 through 2022 is 28 million and some thousand. And the
Thank you.
This comes from another one of our students who submitted a question. Many times individuals will seek out leadership opportunities for clout or resume enhancers. What does being an executive mean to you, and how will you show our student body what the position means to you and will not be about personal gain?
This is us to answer first, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
To me, being a student leader is not about resume building or whatever it is you said. It's making spaces for people who look like me. I'm a first generation, low income, out of state student who grew up in South Minneapolis, now lives in a suburb, have seen how many things are challenging for me to get to this position. And so me being in this position, first of all, wild. Like, there's so many people that grew up with me that have had similar experiences to me that are not able to sit at this table, and I recognize the immense privilege that comes with that. But being an executive to me means truly advocating for students, not only by talking the talk, by walking the walk. I don't think I have to say all the things I'm involved in, not because I want to flex or anything, but literally because advocating for Black students, advocating for first-generation low-income students, advocating for student survivors are things that I do to ensure equity on this campus for everyone.
For me, when I first came to the university, I had just left high school in a town of 400 people. It was one of the most eye-opening experiences of my life, and I had no friends coming to the university. I had no idea where I was going, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was privileged enough to serve in the Freshman Campus Leadership Associate Group, where I met two of my best friends in college ever, Alec Miller and Christine Trin, and that's why I'm involved. It's because of the friendships and the empowerment that this community gives, the ability to advocate for your community and powerful change, as well as accomplishing things, then leaving a legacy. Every single person on our campaign that we interviewed said that they wanted to leave something behind better than when they were here. So to us, it's never been about resume building. It's always been about enjoying the time and creating a better university for everyone. And I'm so glad of the opportunities that I've had. I know it's a privilege that so many don't always get. And I want to continue fighting for that into the future.
Thank you all who submitted a question for the ASUN candidates to answer. Now each campaign will be given the opportunity to end with their closing statements for this debate. Advance will go first.
You want us to close it there?
Yes, please. That's voting. Thank you. Hey, take this microphone, just to be safe. Cover in our faces here, folks. Just trying to bring it home to a finish, folks. Bear with us.
So as we come to a close, I just want to emphasize the Advance campaign's commitment to so many different aspects of campus. We have to understand that there are a lot of issues that we have to tackle, and we're not going to be able to do it alone. Our leadership is not one built on a hierarchy of being better than anyone at the university or asking for people to bow down to us or see ASUN as the pinnacle of the university. Instead, we serve the students. We serve the organizations and the people who do the work, and it's our job to give them the tools that they need in order to succeed. That's why we have 5 pillars that we fight for. advocacy, accountability, sustainability, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and advancing the resources on campus that are needed for everyone. So I'm so proud to lead a campaign of 40 people who each have different projects to accomplish. And I'm so proud to be in this position and eager to continue serving students into my senior year. Thank you again. I'm Jake Drake. I'm running for ASUN Student Body President and Student Regent.
I'm Christine Trin. I am running for Internal Vice President.
My name is Alec Miller. I'm running for External Vice President. And remember to log into MyRed March 1st and 2nd and vote. Thank you.
First of all, we want to start by saying thank you to those attending in person and through the live stream. We appreciate that you've all taken the time and energy to listen why the three of us are running and why we're so passionate about ensuring good leadership within the next term in ASUN. We also want to say thank you to the Daily Nebraskans for hosting this debate and want to give a special shout out to our moderators for tonight's event, and a quick shout out to the ASUN Electoral Commission and specifically Patrick Baker, who has been really helpful throughout this process. Throughout the debate, I hope you've seen how our 4 values, accountability, accessibility, accountability, and attainment, are portrayed within us as people and student leaders, along with our team. I've spent most of this month meant to amplify Black joy and love by exploring the traumas I and other Black students, along with other marginalized students on this campus, that have been faced directly because of student government and this campus as a whole. DEI is not a pillar, but rather a manifestation of our team and our lived experiences. When it is placed into a single category, it is performative because it results in the exclusion of those that do not fit in the majority. Regardless of who you vote for, we hope you're excited for the election and make your impact on the future of student government by voting in the ASUN general election on March 1st and 2nd on MyRed. Again, I'm Mary Ibrahim. I am a junior here running for Student Body President and Student Regent.
Hello again, my name is Harrison Lloyd. I'm a junior economics and international business major, and I'm running for external vice president. Thank you.
I'm Dulce Garcia. I'm a junior studying at PR and journalism with a minor in English, and I'm running for internal vice president.
Thank you.
Thank you. There we go. Thank you, candidates, for your time tonight, and thanks to everyone who attended or watched on our stream. We'd like to thank the candidates and audience for your process throughout this evening. Voting for the ASUN elections opens on March 1st at 8 a.m. and closes on March 2nd at 8 p.m. and is available through MyRed. If you'd like to rewatch this debate, you can find it archived on the Daily Nebraskan YouTube channel. Thanks.